And at the end of the day, guys and girls, as a huge gaming fan for the last 26 years, what I like most about this, more than the promise of haptic feedback, more than the cool crystal buttons, more than the interesting futuristic design idea, it's the fact that it's new. And that just does it for me. The fact that it's something completely unexplored, even if it's bearing many similarities to its counterparts and even its predecessors, it's something new. The DualSense, it says it in the name. This is a new sense when you play. You get a new feel when you play. And for me, that's why Sony has the early advantage. They understand the importance of bringing something to the table that hasn't been brought before. Familiarity, comfortability, routine, those are things that humans love. But we're also curious creatures. We also like the brand new. We also love the exciting. And I personally am such a fan of bold new directions. And I think this is our first glimpse of why the PS5 might be the system for me. This is a big moment for me. This is my first glimpse of next gen. My first little bit of the new era of gaming. And I can taste those consoles just a week away. But given the germ spread of 2020, we aren't gonna lick this guy. What we are gonna do is open it up and talk about the feel. As a massive gaming fan, as someone who's experienced almost every single generation, I wanna let you know how this feels from a player's perspective. I'm sure you've seen this guy unboxed. I'm sure you've seen it up close. I'm sure you've seen all the little details. But how does it feel and how does it compare to a DualShock 4, to an Xbox One X Series X controller? That's what I want to get into your ears and into your eyes. Is this really feeling like a new thing? Or is it feeling like it's just more of the same? Oh man. Oh baby. This takes me back to the last time we had a generational turnover, PS3 to PS4. Throw it back for a second. Next gen is officially here, or at least a teensy tiny piece of it. I was such a baby. But now I'm big, the console's even bigger, and we are about to embark on a whole new journey. The DualSense is here, and this guy is freaking sweet. It comes out of the box looking so sleek, and right off the bat, it is beefier, it is bigger. It feels like it is taking up a thicker presence in my hands. Now I'll let you know, I got small hands. I got what they like to call in the gaming industry Joy-Con hands, because these mitts work for Nintendo's Magic controllers, but I do love a DualShock 4, and this feels thicker. This feels like it's got more oomph to it, and the real deal of the DualSense lies within, right? It's the haptic feedback, it's those triggers, it's the things they're able to do with the games that mostly Sony is probably going to prioritize. I don't know how prevalent it'll be in third-party titles, in multi-platform titles, but at least Sony, with Astro and Demon Souls and Ratchet and probably Miles, are going to go ham to make this thing feel like the game is teleporting from the screen into your hands. I really believe that Nintendo's strength is how well they translate the game experience to your hands. Like, it just always feels right. And now Sony is doubling down on that and trying to bring their own ingenuity, their own creativity, and make the controller really feel like the game. Not just play well, but feel like the game. And I think this is going to be fantastic. The buttons are very, they feel slight to me. Like, I imagine them being a bit higher. The D-pad is small, the sticks feel great. The triggers, though, the triggers are juicy. The triggers feel like you are really gonna have a lot of fun, especially when they bring the tension up, pulling back Aloy's bow, unleash that thing, it's gonna be great. I love that they can mess with the tension depending on your weaponry. The bumpers are wider than I expected. They're wider than I expected, and there's a nice grip to the back of this, a stronger grip than you absolutely had in the DualShock 4. There's a little bit of grip on the DualShock 4, but now holding this feels like a baby. Like, is this the Joy-Con 3? Because now it feels so small. Goodness gracious, going back to back, and you guys I'm sure have seen comparison shots, but I'll show you myself. It is a much bigger controller. It is taller, it is wider, but I think the most important thing is the thickness. That's where this really stands out as a different device. And I'm proud of Sony for introducing a new UI and a new controller, because what makes these boxes different if the games are going to be the same for a number of years? Well, it's really the device that we use to control, okay? That's what's going to set PS5 apart. That's what's going to make this feel next gen for the first year or so. Teraflops, graphics, frame rate, I get it. This is what's really going to be the difference maker. And it is a heavier, thicker controller. I think what you're going to notice most is that those wings, those handles, they feel thicker, and you're going to have to allow for a bit of a learning curve to figure out how that's going to work for your hands. Now, the middle bar here, they still have that clicky button, of course. You've got your PlayStation button that no longer is a circle, but it is actually just a die cut of the actual PlayStation logo, which I like. I will tell you, if you look up close, really detailed, you'll see that all the little grippy bits are actually square, circle, triangle, and X, which is really a cute touch. It's very fancy. The black and white, all right, this is something that people have kind of hemmed and hawed over for a bit. Like, is this a futuristic looking controller? Is it a corny looking controller? I think in hands, it looks really sleek. I will say it looks like they're trying very hard to like be Detroit Become Human, or to take things to like the year 3000. Outcasts would appreciate this. Now, I wasn't sure if the material between the black portion and the white portion would be different, but the front panel for the white and the front panel for the black are identical. They're both the same material. There is a heavy ridge here, though, so between the white and the black, a pretty, like, substantial ridge that you can feel, and that's a little odd to me. Now, the DualShock 4 has a little bit of that, but it's minuscule compared to the DualSense. We're talking about where the grippy bits connect to the front panel. You can feel that ridge a little, but your hands are really never in that position. You're going, you're here, and then you're reaching up to the sticks, and so you're never actually feeling up this side of the controller. But here, with my hands here, these ridges are much more exposed. Now, I won't be actually touching those ridges on purpose with any intentionality, but they are right there, and it's a bit odd. I wish this was a little more flush. It does make me excited for what they decide to do, but I'm curious if they're going to keep the black on everything. You got your little mic here, you've got your charging port here, you've got your buttons up top, your two little share buttons, and I love that they gave kind of like these icy overlays for the D-pad and for the buttons. I want to see D-pad wise. Yeah, the D-pad, I think the D-pad is actually the same size. It just feels smaller given the rest of the girth of the controller. But the buttons feel a little bit different. They are encased in something. The plastic feels a little bit, I don't know, a little bit higher end, I would like to say. But the buttons on the DualShock, they've got more movement to them. The buttons on the DualSense, you're barely pushing them. Now, this DualSense has not been used. This DualShock has been used, so maybe that's a bit of it. But maybe it's just that they're not depressing as much. Maybe they're not higher. I don't know. We're talking like, fractions of a centimeter at this point. But let's compare it now to the Xbox One controller, which is going to be very similar, if not identical, to the Series X controller. Now, this is a lot of players' preferred controller. I think the DualShock 4 is phenomenal, but I know a lot of you out there live and die by the Xbox controller. And I will say that even the Xbox controller feels smaller and lighter in hand than the DualSense. The DualSense is now the big kahuna, and it's this width. It's the gap between the two handles that really makes it feel like a bigger controller. And again, I will show you, if we line these guys up, the DualSense is a wider body. It has more in terms of that depth, and when you hold that, you will feel it in your hands. Now, even width-wise, you can see that the DualSense is a wider controller, both in profile and straight on. It's just a bigger controller. It's a big boy. Now, height-wise, it is not, because of the fact that they shift everything upwards. You don't have the offset sticks, and they leave this giant gap where there's not a whole lot going on. They got the D-pad up in the other stick position, and they just kind of use less vertical space. But I am genuinely surprised by how big it is. Now the question is, how does it play? Let me go check it out. Whew! Ran through a few things, and let me say, this controller is going to be very good. It still feels a little big in my hands, and I don't know, maybe those of you with bigger hands aren't going to really notice as much. For me, my mind is still very aware, which is kind of a bother, but I know through hours of play, that will go away. I don't have access to any of the super cool features like the haptic feedback or the variable triggers, but it does feel like a plenty perfect controller to play with, and I'm honestly excited to get to know something with a different form factor. You see, I think one of the best parts of a new generation is the new. Right? The fact that we do have to get used to a different UI, a different controller. And yes, continuity can be king, right? Access can be king. And I think Xbox is taking a super interesting approach by basically saying, hey, the Xbox you know and love is the Xbox you're going to get. It's just going to be souped up. That is a potential plan that has the opportunity to really amp their install base. But for those of you that want something new, those of you that are excited by the idea that these companies take it to the next level when they make their next console, not just the specs, but the entire concept, I think the PlayStation 5 has that hands down. I mean, I know their box, some people say, looks like a psychotic white router, but I loved it's like this alien piece of tech. Like it's coming from the future. Like we dropped off the Citadel, rip Mass Effect, and we got what the future plays. That's what the DualSense feels like. Now I'm gonna make a prediction. I have no way to try it out right now, but once I get access to the Sony specific features, the ones that are gonna make this controller actually be a piece of tech that people wanna write about. And we've seen some early previews saying like, hey, in Astro, it feels fantastic. You can feel water, like, whoa. I'm predicting that this is going to be my new favorite controller. I wish it was a little, if I had a negative, I wish it was a little slimmer in this direction. I wish it didn't have the depth that it does, but that might be a me thing because I have small hands. Either way, it's so cool to feel what we're gonna be playing on for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Maybe forever. I mean, did we think that the Xbox One controller would basically set the standard for Microsoft multiple generations? No, but this could be Sony's new king piece. And I wonder, in the game of chess that these console manufacturers are playing against each other, will this be a deciding factor? Let me know in the comments down below if you are pumped to get your hands on a DualSense controller. If you think controller is something important and you think it could help Sony really establish themselves as the leaders this generation. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and are pumped for more content. I am going to try my best to get a new console in my hands soon so I can start bringing you guys all the content you absolutely need. But in the meantime, thanks so much for being here. I love you a lot. Hope you're staying safe, staying healthy, staying smart out there. Subscribe if you're ready for next gen. And until next time, XPForce out.